chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Top 20. And this is episode 269. Craziness. But on screen, we've got rid of everyone else. And now it's just Kylie. Kylie Wickley of Texas. And we're still on the hunt for Sydney Miller of Hawaii after the Hawaii takeover last week. But there is a lot of volleyball, so we couldn't wait for Sydney to come on. And it just happens that Kylie happened to be at one big event that happened this weekend. So that'd be Florida State in Tallahassee hosting the Unconquered Invitational. Why don't you share a little bit with our listeners and viewers what happened this weekend in Tallahassee?
Well, it was a super fun weekend. We went undefeated. We played Florida State, LSU, FAU, South Florida, and there was another.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, yes. And a lot of really great teams, lots of really tight battles with those teams. Lots of good volleyball across the board. USF, they're not eligible for rankings or anything, but they've got a lot of good members in their team. Definitely like someone to look out for, and yeah, just lots of good volleyball this weekend.
Well, more importantly, didn't Texas avenge a loss, a 0-5 loss to Florida State from earlier in the season?
So the 05, it's hard because all of our games went to 3 and we're really close in the 5-0. And so even though it was a 5-0, I didn't feel like it. And so I feel like, yeah, we got to avenge it, which was nice.
Well, the great run for Texas going, well, I guess it's only 4-0 since the USF was not as an exhibition match, technically, according to what I've been seeing in the results. But still, really good ball. And we know Florida State is highly capable. They're ranked 5th in the nation this last week. And I know the AVCA poll just came out this minutes before jumping on here. And looks like Florida State dropped to 7 this week. So, but right behind them on their heels, Texas Longhorns. So being that not Kylie, the CVW contributor, how about Kylie Wickley, the Texas beach volleyball player? What's happening in the program that's getting you guys to get those big wins now, especially as of late?
I feel like we're just like grinding every day in practice, like pushing each other every day. We have an awesome coaching staff that like they know what they're doing. And I feel like no person on our team is not like giving it 110% every day. And so I feel like when we get to the time to compete and like at the second time playing against a team, like we're working really hard and it's just kind of just showing when we play.
Well, apparently just announced the CCSA pair of the week, none other than Karen Zolnarchikova and Maddie Parmelli. Had a great weekend out there, apparently. What did you observe?
They beat a team 21-5.
Oof. We don't need to
That's
name the other team. We'll just they are
that's not an easy thing to do at this level. And they just have like I feel like gone to the next level, like playing so well and so consistently together. And just watching them, they were like moving like crazy. Yeah.
moving like crazy. Well, I mean, I know from what I've seen with Maddie and Karen playing at the UT duels, they are, well, Maddie's a fiery defender behind the block, but Conan is a huge block to get around. So makes it a lot easier for Maddie to get a lot more digs and kills in transition.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't think they didn't drop a set. They didn't drop a single set out there. Now I'm looking at the results and I
No.
see that one score you're referring to. So, but they powered through everyone. No one scored more than 19 points against them the entire weekend. So, great weekend for the 3 pairs for Texas. But we have to draw attention to another pair that is playing really well. I believe they're 10-0 together at the fours. That's Macy Butler and Noah Sonneville. Can you talk about their play a little bit?
I mean, yeah, I don't think they're 10-0, but they are playing super well, and they're a really fun pair to watch.
I pulled that from your guys' release. Let me verify here on the source, collegebeachvb.com here. Let's see. Well, it shows that Noah's 20-9 on her own. I have to go in and calculate what her record is with Macy. But
They've been playing together the whole season.
all right. Well, they are still solid in the win column, anyways. If they're
Yes.
9's pretty decent in the record, and they've been doing it for the Longhorns here. And what a great showing this last weekend. I mean, it's not the other pairs aren't delivering, but it just shows they've continually have risen from the beginning of the season from being ranked 14th and now at 8th. So that's some pretty decent climbing for Stein and you and your team.
Yeah.
So let's go back. We're going to look at another team that you saw there, Florida State, especially since, I mean, literally, we are only 2 weeks out from conference tournament play. We've got next weekend and conference tournament play. So, Florida State in the CCSA final year, they went 3-1, only lost to you guys, but they have a pretty decent group of pairs at each level. But what have you observed from Florida State?
I mean, for what I've seen, their 1 through 3 pairs are pretty consistent and like staying there. Fours and fives are switching every game, every weekend, and so sometimes the chemistry isn't always there. And so, like from what we saw, there was a pair that was like brand new together. They kind of struggled in some games.
Mhm.
Just like I think missing some chemistry when it's hard. I mean, remember last year with Allie, she was talking about a lot. Like she played ones, twos, threes, fours, and fives last year with like 9 different partners, and it's hard to not know if you're going to move up or down or whatever. But I think once conference hits and those pairs are feeling a little bit more comfortable together, it could be good for them.
Well, they have a pretty powerful duo at the ones, and they
Yeah.
are currently rocking a 23-5 record, and that's Alexis Durish and Audrey Koenig. I don't think anyone would have expected them to be as successful as they are, but they're getting it done. Did you get to see them play at all?
Yeah. I mean, they're gnarly. Like, they call her AK, Audrey Koenig. She hits the ball straight down, and she's a pretty big block. And then you have Alexis, who's a pretty consistent defender. It's a good duo.
Well, expect a lot of things out of Florida State. I mean, especially with the coaching staff and the work they're doing. You had mentioned something that was interesting that they're pretty locked in their lineup. It's the same 10 girls. 1 through 3 is locked in, but the fours and fives are switching, but it's the same pairs going back and forth in the fours and
Yeah.
fives. So, I mean, they're pretty darn solid. And, you know, a loss to Texas isn't a bad thing. I mean, you guys are going back and forth, but they do have a lot of talent. And one of the girls that has or athletes that's really stuck out in my mind is their true freshman blocker, Gilla Andrew. And I mean, I remember at East versus West, the one in Manhattan Beach, not in Texas. She was blocking a ton of balls, and for a freshman, she has such a strong arm swing. And um, she she's listed at 6'3", but I feel like she plays even bigger than that. Reminds me a lot of Carrie Walsh Jennings, the way she swings and moves on the court. So, um, did you get to observe anything else? Anything of note that you'd want to share with our watchers and listeners?
Um, I feel like what I said, I think Alexis and AK are pretty solid up there. Like their top 3 pairs are pretty consistent and getting the job done, and they're fun to watch.
Oh, we will be watching the Seminoles, one of the other teams that was at, or the host of the Unconquered Invitational. Anything else you want to add about that tournament that you were at? All right, I think we are, well, LSU. We got to talk LSU because they are always in the discussion. And another CCSA team. So all the CCSA teams got a little taste of each other this last weekend. But LSU is one of those scary teams because although their record doesn't show it, the battles that they're having do. They're falling 2-3 in their duels, but they've got a whole lineup of, in some cases, converted indoor players who are playing a high level of ball pretty quickly. But what are your thoughts on LSU, Kylie?
I mean, they have so many solid players, and I feel like they are just such a competitive team. Like their record might show one thing, but they're fighting and digging every game. And so if you don't go to win, then they might pull one out from under you. I mean, throughout their whole lineup, they're pretty solid. Like at the ones, Gabby Bailey, Parker Bracken. Then at the five, like Skylar Martin. And I mean, she's an awesome defender. And then they've got freshmen at the twos, Cameron Chatelier.
Chatelier, yes.
Yeah, she's fiery too. I mean, they've got a good lineup of girls that know how to fight. So wouldn't count them out.
Yeah, Cameron Chatelier and her partner, Elle Evers, is I obviously got to meet them out at Texas, but wow, what a future. I think they're both freshmen, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. I know Elle is for sure a freshman, but quite the future ahead if those girls stay there 4 years. Um, and you'd mentioned Gabby Bailey and release the Parker Bracken. Um, Parker Bracken is one of the best defenders in the game, I'll have to say. What she does in transition, she's so strong. It's so hard to beat this pair, which is a shocker. As I looked at one of the results, FAU's ones beat them, but who were they? They were a pair of the week, Ashley Adams and Marketa Svozilova. So and if you're going to lose to someone who's a three-set match, 15-12 in the third. So, um, man, those ones of Bracken and Bailey are going to be a team to contend with come postseason time.
Mhm.
So let's move on. So LSU, we hit on them. Um, for the most part, you know, the Unconquered Invitational is basically a preview of things to come next year because Texas, FSU, LSU, and South Carolina all move over to the MPSF conference. So, because there's only a 14 conference in the CCSA this year, and if I remember correctly, you guys aren't going to get an automatic berth. You have to rely on a at large.
Yes, we do. We only have four teams in the conference. It is us, South Carolina, Florida State,
And
and
LSU.
LSU. So
And so that win against Florida State is actually big for you guys.
yeah, it is.
So here's one other tournament going on the opposite coast and the left coast, which I happen to be at pretty much all weekend. It was the best in the West. In Laguna Beach. You couldn't have asked for a more beautiful setting. It was like Kauai. I mean, we
And
had,
everyone's pictures, wow, look so awesome.
I felt like dolphins were jumping, rainbows were flying over the place, and Sydney Miller was there, Kelly Bellardi, all CVW gals. But um, Friday started off in a most intense fashion. And for those of you who don't follow men's indoor, I do men's indoor as well. College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20. It was a crazy week of upsets. And it carried over into what happened on Friday at the Best in the West. You had three pretty major upsets. You had Stetson upsetting LMU in the first duel of the day, 3-2. And then two duels later, Hawaii then upsets Stetson 3-2 because Hawaii coming in ranked 19th, Stetson 14th. It's an upset for the Beach Bows. Then three duels later, number 6 Cal Poly upsets UCLA 3-2. First ever victory over UCLA by the Mustangs. The rest fell into place as expected. But what do you think that says about the competition, especially this year? Because I know we mention it a lot, but I love hearing it said by the athletes themselves.
I mean, we keep talking. It's like it's all up for grabs. Like nobody know. There's not. I feel like in other years, been like, okay, USC is gonna win, or UCLA is gonna win. but it's just all up for grabs, and whoever at the end is gonna peak and take it is gonna take it, and everyone's contending. So it's really interesting.
Well, that was just day one, Kylie, because on day
Yeah.
two, we had two more upsets. Cal Poly, number 6, upsetting number 3, LMU, 3-2. And that was a dogfight. And it was so fun to watch because a few of the pieces I pulled out, particularly the four pairs, a great matchup between two very similar teams. For Cal Poly, it was Maddie Nichols and Ella Connor versus Maddie Rabich and Isabel Reffel of LMU. And it went to a third set tiebreak, deuce set in the third. But the defenders of Nichols versus Rabich, I mean, watching how fiery they were and the blocking of Reffel and of Connor, those girls were swatting balls and hitting so hard all through that match. And that tied it up 2-2, which brought it down to the three pairs, which I'm not going to toot my own social account, but I captured every point. Cal Poly was down 11-14 in the third set tiebreak. That was a team of Lindsay Sparks and Quinn Perry against, got to remember it here, Lisa Luini and the Canadian girl. It's slipping, not Chloe, Abby
Abby
Thorup.
Thurber.
Abby Thorup. There you go. But 14-11, they go into a timeout, and something is said in the timeout. I didn't quite get it. But from one of the referees, they'd heard Lindsay Sparks just say to Quinn, you're touching him. Just press over on your block. And sure enough, she got 3 blocks the next few plays to tie it up. And if you watch the highlights on my social at the Rob on the Mic, no, not shameless self-promotion, but it was a phenomenal comeback. I asked Todd Rogers, the coach, the next day, I'm like, so what was the key to getting that win? He's like, Rob, one of my players, I'm not going to name who, says in the timeout, we're not effing going to lose. That's all that was said. So you got to love the fire in those timeouts. Sydney Miller of Hawaii decided to make an appearance here. So
Hi. Oh my God.
perfect
I
timing.
set my alarm.
Oh,
I'm here.
don't mind her. She's on island time, so it's okay.
Oh my gosh.
So, but we were talking about best in the West. You remember you were there this last weekend?
Yes, I do remember. Oh my God. There's so much chit chat about.
Well, we're on day 2 because we mentioned that there were 3 upsets on day 1.
Yes.
We'll give you a chance to insert what you thought were the big matches of day 1.
Is that the day
LMU Stetson upsetting LMU, and
Yes.
then
Oh, I'm
Hawaii,
done. That was a big
you
one.
guys upsetting Stetson, and then Cal Poly upsetting UCLA.
Yeah, that was the big one. UCLA and the Cal Poly duel. Before we played USC, we literally were all waiting because it was all down to one court, Natalie and Perry and Logan and Izzy. And it literally took like an extra 15 minutes after we were all done because it was going point by point, point by point. But yeah, that was a very big upset. And I'm surprised, but also not surprised at the end of the day.
All right.
Like I've said, Cal Poly is really good this year. So
Yeah, they got a really good coach. He's kind of good, but
yeah.
But and then we had literally just started talking about the LMU's upset of UCLA to end Saturday, 3-2.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was needed for them. I think they had kind of a hard day on, I think it was Saturday, right? Yeah. They had a hard
They had a
day
tough
on
go.
Saturday. Yeah, so I think they needed that to kind of keep their ranking and also for sleeping purposes of being able to fall asleep, being okay with.
Yeah, well, they split the day on Friday and they went 0-1. Well, they started off the day of that loss to Cal Poly. So
Yeah.
And it was close. I mean,
But Cal Poly is not even the one. I was more of that Stetson upset them. I think that was the kind of shocking one.
The kick off the tournament.
Yeah.
So, and then finally on Sunday, you had Long Beach State upsetting Cal Poly, a Big West matchup, which you should be familiar with, Sydney.
Yes, very familiar
So,
with. Again, same thing. We got there to scout because we were playing Cal Poly next, and their lineups were a little bit different. Demi and Megan moved up to four, as I called that also. And they beat Ella and Maddie, so they got 1 point there. Malia and Taylor, of course, 1 point there. And then it came down to the threes, which was so interesting because when Cal Poly beat UCLA, it came down to the threes, and Lindsay Sparks and Quinn Perry came back from losing 11-14. So when I was watching, they were down kind of the whole third set, and I was like, like I really wonder if they're gonna do the same thing again. But no, Skylar ended up putting it away and being able to pull out the dub for Long Beach. So that's a very good win for them.
yeah. Well, I mean, like you mentioned, the way it transpired that duel on Sunday between Cal Poly and Long Beach State, um, you just had that sense. Oh my gosh, it's Quinn and Lindsay of Cal
Mm-hmm.
Poly in that third set tiebreak for the dual clinching match against Skylar Gurman and Natalie Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
and it had that same feel going into late into crunch time in the third set, and was it Skylar that was able to get that wipe off the
Yeah, they
block and
were serving
recycle
stuff.
it,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
then Natalie was able to drop that shot down the line, and
Mm-hmm.
even Cal Poly was like, "Oh wait, you just beat our people, our girls who are always clutch, our
Mm-hmm.
queens of clutch." So,
Literally. Yeah.
but exciting weekend. But I wanted to give you a
Yes.
chance to talk about your experience there since you were playing for
Yes.
Hawaii, and we'll go
Um,
from there.
I think it was nice. We beat UNF and then also Stetson, which was like important for us as a program and like definitely one of our goals coming into the weekend. Um, and then we got another look at Cal Poly, which is always fun and interesting because, like I said, we play them so much that um, it's nice to know what's going on. And we're kind of figuring it out. We went 4-1, so or 1-4, I guess. But yeah. So slowly but surely we're figuring it out. And then again, USC and UCLA are always great teams and fun to play. It's just good volleyball at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were other matches going on, but that was a lot in itself between the Unconquered Invitational. You want to add some thoughts about what you saw results wise from the FSU Unconquered Invitational?
The only one that I was like, oh my gosh, was Texas beating FSU. Like I wasn't surprised, but I was like, that's lit. But that's the only one that I really even saw.
Yep. Well, I guess the weekly awards came out, and not I wasn't able to see all of them, but what I could catch, AVCA Pair of the Week, Kennedy Coakley and Ashley Pater, well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And then, ironically, the MPSF Pair of the Week was another SC pair. It
Yeah.
wasn't Kennedy and Ashley, but it was Maddie White and Zoe Henson.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting there. And then I got to look at my phone. There's way too much are dropping. No shocker here, but Big West Pair of the Week. Miles just give him the award the entire year.
Literally, I'm like, okay.
Taylor Hagenow, Malia Gemantera.
Yep.
So yeah, they're doing some great things. And
They are.
then the CCSA Pair of the Week, a Texas duo, Maddie Parmelli and Karen Zolnarchikova. And then the WCC Pair of the Week, why not throw it down again? You've got Tannen Rosenthal
Uh-huh.
and the Olympian Yuli Paletti Corrales. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I've seen so far. So sorry I didn't get the other ones if you've got them out there. But I wanted to do an exercise with our two contributors here. It's it's 2 weeks until conference tournament time. We already said that in the beginning, but I want you guys to like in 2 sentences, 1 to 2 sentences, summarize our we'll say top 11 teams, and we're going to start at 11. And this is based on last week's ranking, but I guess I have to change it up a little bit here now that we got the current AVCA ranking. Number 11, LSU. We're going to start with Kylie first. 1 to 2 sentence summary of where LSU's at.
LSU is definitely pushing up. They're a contender that teams need to take care of and need to make sure that they're on for because otherwise they'll sneak it out of you.
Excellent. As Sydney goes for an NIL deal with Gatorade there. Appreciate that.
Lime.
How about you, Sydney?
Um, I kind of agree with what Kylie said. I think LSU is one of those teams that you can't underestimate, but I also think that they potentially aren't as strong as they have been in the past, which is why they're at 11 and maybe not as higher ranked if they have as they have been. But again, I still think when playing them, it's super important to be just as dialed in as any team because they are still very good, but
Yeah. Mine is just capable of upsetting someone up top. That's all I will say. All right, let's go down to number 10, Cal, and our third contributor who haven't been able to get on with everyone. At one point will, but thoughts on Cal, we'll start with Sydney this time.
I think they started off really hot and they were winning a lot and beating teams that were very good. And I don't seem to see as many upsets from them as I did at the beginning. So I'm curious to see when it gets closer to the wire if it's going to be, if they're going to be able to pull out wins or if they're not going to be able to pull out wins. So I'm super curious to see.
Super curious. That's a good one. How about you, Kylie? Thoughts on Cal at number 10 this week?
I'm curious too because I feel like their schedule's kind of been like up and down, where I feel like a lot of other teams it's been like a kind of a ramp up into like more what postseason is, so that like you're prepared to kind of play those teams, and they've kind of like they had a hot few weekends, and then it's like kind of up and down. So I'm curious too to see how they handle postseason and all that.
Well, they've got one of the most, I guess, dynamic and powerful ones in Emma Donnelly and Portia Sherman. And, they were playing well at the East versus West in Austin. And also the East meets West. Gosh, that is so
I
confusing.
know
Back to
all the
back
mix
weeks.
ups.
But I mean, the rest of their lineup is good, and obviously contributor Mary Lou Pally has been with Alex Gomez, and they had some struggles, but they seem to be figuring out. They're mixing up their lineup, but they actually come out to Hawaii for a really weird schedule. They play Grand Canyon, Hawaii, Grand Canyon, Hawaii. So that's this weekend.
Yep.
Um, I
Senior
don't,
weekend.
I don't think Sydney's getting pictures with Mary Lou this weekend. We'll see.
No.
All right. Cal, I think they're there. They're always pushing the top. I think they'll be figuring things out, but they are more than capable. They've got the pieces in place, and it's just a matter of dialing in at the right time. And everyone knows it comes down to the tournament. So,
Mhm.
all right, let's go to LSU. Actually, we did that one right. Long Beach State at number 9 this week. We'll start with you, Kylie.
They have just some really solid pairs. Obviously, like Taylor and Malia, but then also Demi and Megan are super solid. And so I think they're a good team that is gonna upset teams too. Because I feel like they're also like pretty like a lot of fighters and like similar to LSU, like they're pushing hard against teams. So the it'll like all fall into place, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Sydney. On your Big West counterparts, thoughts?
I think that they are kind of a little bit like underdogs because I think in the Big West, Cal Poly's kind of been super flashy this year. So I think that a lot of teams don't give credit for how good Long Beach is doing slash playing. I think they're one of those teams that like you play them and you're like shocked about how good they play. Um,
Hmm.
so I definitely see some bright things in their future. Like literally this past weekend, they went 2-3 with Stanford. Like I just think a couple points in different directions and like they're taking those duels. So
Yeah, they're at 25-4, Malia and Taylor. And their only losses are to Haley Hamlet and Danny Alvarez, Maggie Boyd, Sally Perez. Who are the other two? Alexis Durish, Audrey Koenig, and who's the fourth one off the top of my head there? Um, I can't seem to find. I have to look it up. But and if you look, Maddie White and Zoe Henson, and ironically, the only one where they lost in two was to Maddie White and Zoe Henson, but the rest they're three setters. So that's almost a near guaranteed point for Long Beach State, but they need the rest of the lineup to really step up. Megan Widener and Demi Wagdy are capable of doing that. Depending on where they're at, they've been bouncing back and forth between the four and the fives, and then but it just depends on who they're playing really. And then Julia Westby and Haley Carrington at the twos, they're like a 50-50. So they need production from one other spot on their in their flights. So, but good stuff, you guys. Um, we'll like this one. Should we have Kylie talk in third person? Number 8, Texas. So we'll start with Sydney and then go to Kylie. One or two sentences to summarize where you think Texas is at.
I think 2 sentences. Impressed. I think that no one is surprised that they had a good season this year. I think everyone was expecting them to come out hot, like with such good coaches and such like eager and a new team. Like everyone wants to win, and I think it's really shown.
Yep. Okay. Kylie, talk about yourself.
I feel like we're just like climbing and pushing, and I'm excited to see what like conference and like a postseason will look like for us.
Yeah. For me, it's another team that you probably don't want to see in the tournament or play against because they're capable of pulling off an upset. That's why. See, look at that. You got shocked. But if you're an opponent, you don't want to see this Texas team because they're able to dial it in. I feel like uh, your ones, you're good all the way out, but your most consistent so far has been your twos, threes, and fours, kind of fives. Yeah, right now they're the ones getting the points in the clutch right now. So it seems, and that can change based on what you guys shift in the lineup. But they're the Longhorns are definitely capable of pulling a huge upset. Next up, Florida State. Let's start with you, Kylie.
I think that they're a team that's always going to be a contender for things. They've got really solid pairs and players that are pushing, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Sydney.
I think we talked about a lot how they're a super young team. So, I mean, being so young, like they're still doing really good as a school. I know that their ones pair is kind of like had a really good season. So, I'm curious to see if 2 other flights can kind of figure it out and maybe they can push back up to the top.
Yeah. Florida State is kind of like Texas in my eyes. They have a few older athletes, but a majority of them playing are young, sophomore and freshman. Good for the future, but I think their mental stability come conference tournament and NCAA, should they be in, is going to come into play. But if it, based on what I've seen mentally, they're there. They're strong. They've just got to remember play according to the system that the coaching staff is giving them. So, uh, USC, Sydney, go first.
I think kind of the same thing as Florida State. I think they're kind of still trying to figure out the bottom of their lineup. 4s and 5 changes a lot. They kind of are locked in at 1, 2, and 3 now. So I feel like if they can figure out like their pairs towards the bottom, I feel like they could still like have a really good end of season. Because I know the top of their lineup's really strong and like both, because like 1 and 2 both got pair of the week. So like they're doing good things. I think they just need one more at the lower because it's hard to win consistently at 1 and 2 because the teams are so good.
Yeah. Kylie, USC. They are in at number 6 this week, in case you're wondering. They moved up one from last week.
Yeah, I feel like they are always like gonna be a good team and everything, but I feel like they've relied on their experience in the lineup and they don't really have that same experience in the lineup on their team right now. And so I feel like they've been struggling to figure out like those 3 source fives positions. And so I feel like if they're able to figure that out, then it would be good for them and scary for other teams.
Yeah, it's crazy because I look at the ones, twos, and fives. Like, well, you got Maddie and Zoe at ones. You have Kennedy and Ashley at the twos. I'm like, who's your fives? Maya Gessner and Ella Larkin. I'm like, those are your fives? Hey, that's a guaranteed dual win right there with your 3 points. So, you know, they're gonna they're gonna be ready come postseason. They're no stranger to the Natty. 4 in a row. The mission is 5, and they want to have 7. If you hear anyone talking that on in their locker room, they want that 7. They want the 5, they want the 7. So yeah, scary team. Stanford at 5. Is that you, Sydney? Did I go start with you or Kylie? You want to
You
go?
started with me last time.
All right, so we'll go Kylie, Stanford at the 5 spot.
Again, another solid team. I feel like they've really kind of solidified themselves as like a constant top 10 team. They've got a mix of experience and like young players in the lineup, and I feel like they're just kind of like a grinding team that when you play them, like they never just give up on a point. So
Yep.
yeah.
All right, Sydney.
Same as what Kylie said, again, like a really good team, always a solid contender when if it comes to Bama and somebody's lined up to them first, that's not a team that you want to be lined up against. Their ones is super young. I know that. That's whenever I watch them, I always think that's interesting. Brooke and Avery at the ones, so a sophomore and a freshman. But the rest of their lineup is pretty experienced. Their twos, Taylor and Ruby have been there for a long time, both seniors. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's interesting how Andrew has put the lineup, but seems to be working for them.
I'm going to agree that yes, that is a scary team. And yes, the youth is what stuck out most for me this weekend in the best in the
Mhm.
West because when you have Brooke Rockwell and Avery Jackson putting on they put together a solid highlight reel without a doubt, from blocking to a 2 ball attacks to scoop and delivering. These girls were, I mean, they've got such quick jumps and wicked arm swings. Avery on the block. I mean, just look at one of the highlights I had on my social. And sorry, Maddie, that you were the victim of it, but man, that was one of the hardest blocks that I've seen this year on the beach. And you see Maddie swing with everything she has, and you see Avery press over and pike at the perfect time, which create a good sound effect off the sand, off the block. So Stanford is definitely a scary team. I think Kylie's still there, so I'm going to say we'll go to LMU and go to you, Sydney.
Okay, sounds good.
About I.
LMU, I think they had a hard weekend, but overall, I think they've had a really good season. I think that this weekend may have been a wake-up call. Losing to a team that's below you is never easy. So I think coming the future, I think they're going to be a little bit more fiery and maybe a little bit more hungry for those wins. But I definitely think that they did a good job over the weekend of not giving up once they did lose that first duel against Stetson. So
Mm-hmm. All right, Kylie, the Lions of LMU. You
Yeah, I
see them
feel
this
like
coming in 2 weekends, right? No, you already saw them. I
we saw
can't
them twice.
remember.
I mean, I think that they just had like a really hot first weekend and kind of like maybe have been riding that high and then like getting upset like that, I feel like was like Cindy said, like a big wake up call. And so I think they're gonna turn the heat up, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Loyola Marymount, if there is a 3 through 5 pairs I wouldn't want to match up against, it's LMU's. They have to be one of the. I mean, those 3 pairs can get you points. Now, one factor that wasn't really discussed was they're without the services of their number 2 blocker Anna Poloya this last weekend. At the WCC Challenge, apparently they just wanted to be cautious, but she sat out. So I think those upsets probably wouldn't have happened if she's in the lineup because the big Italian blocker stands at 6'2", 6'3", and it's hard to. She takes up a lot of space. So it's a difference of 1 to 2 points each of the sets. I just don't think people are beating them with her in the lineup. But the 3s through 5s have been the solid scoring um, part of the LMU lineup. So let's jump over to third-ranked Cal Poly this weekend. Let's start with you, Kylie.
I think Cal Poly has a lot of experience in their lineup, and it's interesting. I mean, they've got a lot of like great players, but it's interesting seeing like some people like where they kind of used to be like Ella Connor, an All-American her freshman year, is like now at the fours. And like that's a super solid team, and all their teams are super solid teams. I mean, is Lindsay's a seventh year? Is that am I right on that or sixth year?
Something, sixth, seventh,
Yeah.
eighth.
Well,
Yeah.
she had a
I mean, that's a
double
lot of
medical red shirt,
experience
COVID
there.
year. She got everything in the package, and then she's working on a grad degree. So,
I
but
mean,
yeah, they
that's a lot of experience to bring. I mean, like you're saying, like she's like helping her partner in the middle of a game. Like if you're having that kind of experience, like that's a good asset to have on your team.
yeah, yep. What do I have to add about Cal Poly? The coaching. I mean, there's just something about Todd Rogers who's able to get 200% out of his players. If you talk to him, he's like, Rob, anyone in my lineup is potential threat to any other team because we're just that talented when in our trainings, and they're that hungry. So uh, I thought it was, and coming from a coach like that, you just have to say, you know what, he knows what he's talking about. So Cal Poly is a team to watch out for. We're down to our top two, UCLA. Let's go with you, Sydney.
Okay, sounds good. I think they also kind of had a hard weekend. They lost to LMU, and then also they lost to
Cal Poly.
Poly, right? So I think kind of same thing, a little bit of a wake-up call. I think maybe they peak. I know there's some movement towards the bottom of their lineup, so maybe that was a factor. I don't know. Again, I think obviously still a huge contender. They're second. Like they're gonna win games. They're gonna win duels. But I'm curious to see if they can figure out the bottom of their lineup in time for Alabama.
Yeah. Kylie, UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, they're again because uh, like one of the best teams, but I feel like moving teams this deep into the season, like at such a big tournament, was probably hard and like kind of the reason for those losses. But I feel like Jenny knows what she's doing, and they're gonna figure it out.
All right. UCLA, they had a bump in the road this weekend. I think if anything, they're going to use that to their advantage. They're going to be totally mad. I'm not going to cross their paths the rest of the season
Mhm.
because that program doesn't bode well with losing. So that's a usually good fire for certain teams. And I think this is a fire to the tail weekend for UCLA. And then finally, TCU. We haven't talked a whole bunch about them, but we know number one, 2 weeks in a row now. Kylie, you're a fellow state school.
Um, well, I think that they also had a pretty tough weekend. I mean, it didn't show, but they almost got upset by Arizona State. They had it was tied like 1-1 on the duel, and then three courts went to three at the ones, threes, and fives, and it was 3-2. And ASU is a good team, but they also like University of Arizona snuck one, and there was another team that snuck another dual point there. So I feel like yeah, they're a solid team, but I think that teams are also coming for them. So yeah.
Okay. All right, Sydney.
I just think that they're deep. I think that, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Their team is very deep and they have a lot of experience in big moments. So I think coming down to Alabama or their championship, I think that they're going to be able to perform because there's so many Olympians on that team that that's the highest pressure they'll probably ever experience. So coming to Bama, it's probably like, oh, this is a walk in the park. But we'll see.
So I look at TCU and, you know, Tanya Moreno isn't even playing with Danny Alvarez, who are the two Spanish Olympians, but instead they plugged in Haley Hamlet, a 6'1" lefty banger, with Danny, who's a 6'4" lefty banger. What's it like playing against two huge lefties who can hammer the ball every single time? That's their one pairs. Then you got to look at who they've got in the rest of the lineup. They have Alanis Navas and Sofia Izukiza at the threes, and they're killing everyone. So then a Ukrainian national team, they're probably going to be Olympia for Ukraine. Lena Camille and Ana Vergara, another Spaniard, at the fours, and they're turning it on at the right time here at the tail of the season. So TCU is going to be a juggernaut. But the thing is, their conference and their other teams, Texas, LSU, they may have something to say about that. So we shall see. Great breakdown, ladies. I probably should have given you a warning before I had that on you guys, but I figured on the spot is better. See how you guys react to the question. With that, we always end on our players of the week. So be hard if you. I'm saying maybe 2 to 3, maybe a pair, 2 pairs, but who stuck out performance wise in your eyes? And let's start with you, Sydney.
I'm gonna go Lindsey Sparks and Quinn Perry. I think that was the clutch of the century, being down 11-14 and coming back against such a good team like LMU is damn near impossible. So they get my shout out for the week.
Just one, okay.
No, the pair. Yeah, I'm just giving one.
One
It's
pair,
special
okay.
this week. The pair as itself.
All right, Kylie.
I'm giving one pair too. Maddie Parbley got in Lauren Shakova. I mean, beating a team 21-5 at this level is really hard to do. And they were solid. They won all their games this weekend against tough teams. So, yeah.
Okay. I am going to go with 2 pairs. One, because they are the MPSF pair of the week, but being that where my booth was or where I'm stationed on the beach, I got to watch a lot of the ones pairs for the first time and the 3 pairs. But the play of is it Zoe Henson and Maddie White, where watching what they're doing, I'm surprised they have losses, but you can't have a perfect season. That's given because you got too many good athletes. But what they're doing as a pair was really fun to watch. And the other pair happened to play up against them, Stanford's Avery Jackson and Brooke Rockwell. Watch them play separately because originally Avery was with Kelly Bellardi and Ruby Sora was with Brooke Rockwell. And they've kind of flipped things around. But wow, what a power pair at the ones for Stanford. So all good stuff there. With that, anything else to add before we close our segment, ladies? What do you guys got going on this coming weekend? We'll start with you, Sydney.
Senior weekend, we play Cal and GCU, so it should be exciting. Sad, but exciting.
All right, but you still have one more year after this, so you're...
Yeah, I do, but I love my teammates and my besties, so I don't want them to leave.
Is Amira Ali there, by chance?
She's in her room.
Oh, I told her she could video bomb whenever she wanted.
So funny. And if she goes, Rob, you'll make a video bomb you. I'm like, okay, I'm locking my door next time I film. She's like, no.
Just bring it in while she's napping and we'll wake her up.
Literally. Oh my gosh.
All right, Kylie, parting thoughts.
I'm excited for another week of
Who do you guys have?
We're off.
Oh, you're
nice.
idle.
That's right. Weekend to be off.
But then you close out senior weekend the following weekend, in which I will be there at the Wright Whitaker Sports Complex
Cal
for the final time.
Poly, UNF, and Southern Miss. So
yeah,
get it, girl.
Big
well,
week.
Excellent stuff, ladies. That's Kylie Wickley of Texas, Sydney Miller of Hawaii. Always a pleasure having you on. Look forward to catching again. I think that's it for you and I, Sydney. You're not going to be around here, so but I will see Kylie.
Oh, seeing wise, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, best of luck this week to you, Sydney. And while Kylie's napping and training in her off week, she's getting ready for the closing weekend because I believe it is senior weekend for you.
It is. It is senior weekend.
So, ladies, best of luck this week and enjoy your time off if you're off.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.